what I'd like to do now is I would like to show you how we're going to cite a source in APA format. So when you're starting your references list, you want to make sure that you title your paper References. In other citation styles, they use different words. So sometimes they say bibliography, that will be Chicago style. Works cited, that will be MLA style. But for APA style, we're going to say references. So I have an example of a book and an article that I would like to cite. So let's start with the book. So the book that I would like to cite. So the first thing I want to do is I want to grab the example from our APA guide. So I'm going to go back to the library site and I'm going to look at citing a book or an ebook, and I'm going to look at an example. So we have different examples. Here's an example if it's the first edition or edition not listed. Here's an example of edition other than first. And here's an example of editor instead of an author. So I want to go back to my example and look and see if there is an edition. And I also want to look and see if there's an editor or an author. So in this example, it says by Sarah Walker. So it looks like that will be the author. It says first edition. So we're going to stick with the example for first edition. So I'm going to go back to, our APA guide, and I'm going to copy the example for first edition or edition not listed, but this one is the first edition. So I'm going to copy this example here, and then pretty much I'm just going to fill in the blanks. So because I have the format listed, I just want to make sure that I am filling in the blanks with the correct information. So remember, this would be in Times New Roman, size 12, and we're going to double space that. So I'm going to definitely double space that when I finish with my citation. So we remember that the author here is Sarah, right? Sarah Walker. So I'm going to go back to my citation. I'm going to change the author name to Walker, comma, S for Sarah, and then we don't know her middle initial, so we can actually leave that off. Cite what you see, remember? So we don't know the middle initial, so we're going to leave that out. The year for this book is 2002, so we're going to plug that in, 2002. The title of the book is Big Cats. The publisher, let's go back to our example, and in the details it will tell us the name of the publisher. So the publisher here is DK, so we're going to put that in as our publisher name. Oops, let me make sure I got that right. Yes, DK. Now I have publisher name twice here, so we actually only want to put that once. And then the DOI, or the URL or database permalink. So DOIs really came out around 2001, and they were primarily used for electronic journal articles. So in this case, if you do see a DOI, which I am not seeing one, in fact, most of the books in our library catalog will not have a DOI. So cite what you see. So if you don't see a DOI, you don't have to put that. But it is helpful to your professor to be able to go back and look at the source. So I'm going to go with the database permanent link. So each of our databases will have a permanent link listed. So in this example, we're going to click on the link here, and I'm going to copy the catalog link. So I'm going to go back to here, and instead of a DOI, I'm going to put the permanent link for the article so the professor can go back and look at it. All right, so there's our source. There's our source in APA format. Now let's cite one more source. So I'm going to go over and I want to look at this journal article. So this is from a publication called Science. And how would we cite the source? Now, you probably know that in the databases, there are these citation tools. So on the side of the item description, it says cite. And if you click on that, It will give you a sample citation in APA format, but always double check these citations because even the database says pay special attention to personal names, capitalizations, and dates. Consult your library resources. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to copy this. Now keep in mind when you copy, it's not going to a lot of times keep the formatting. So sometimes the italics will change when you copy and paste, and then it's still not going to be in the proper format. So we want to use this as a starting point, but we want to make sure that we're correcting it. So the first thing I see that we want to correct is we want to make sure that this is in Times New Roman. Sometimes you'll even get like a gray background when you copy and paste. So watch out for that. You want to make sure that you get rid of the gray background. And now what I want to do is I want to actually grab the example for citing a journal article from our website. And I want to just compare it and make sure that I'm getting everything correct. So there's an example for without a DOI and with a DOI. Let's go back to our article and see if there's a DOI. There is a DOI. So 7th edition of APA, they would like for us to format our DOI with HTTPS. So in older editions, they formatted it differently, but now we want to format it like this. So the example we're going to use is electronic journal article from a database or website with a DOI. So I'm going to copy this example and just make sure that all of the elements are correct in our citation. So we've got the author's last name, comma, first initial, period, and now the author's going to look a little bit different than this because there's multiple authors. So if we go back to the APA guide, remember there's examples here on how to format authors if you have more than one. So technically the author would look like this if you have more than one. So we've got our period, comma, and then the ampersand. Then we've got the second author's last name, comma, first initial, and then the year. That looks good. The title of the article is in sentence case, which means only the first letter of the first word is capitalized. We've got the name of the journal in italics. We've got the volume number in italics. We've got the issue number. And we've got the page number. And we've got the DOI. So let me go ahead. The font looks a little different, so I want to make sure that's a dark font. So basically what we did was we copied this from the database, but we also compared it to our example to make sure that everything was correct, because again, the database citations are computer generated. They're not always accurate, so we want to double check that. So now we can take off these examples, and here we have our sources. Now we're not done yet. We still want to put them in alphabetical order, and so actually V comes before W, right? So we want to make sure that we're putting in alphabetical order by whatever starts the source. So remember, the citation may not start with the author. It could start with the title if there is no author. So whatever starts the source is how you're going to put these in alphabetical order. We're still not done. We want to make sure that these are double spaced, because see, the first source is not double spaced. So there is a trick on your keyboard. So if you to double space, you can on your keyboard. If you are on a PC, this will not work on a Mac, but if you hit Control and then plus the number 2, that will do your double spacing. So let's try it. So if we do highlight all of this and hit Control and the number 2, now we've got our double spacing. There's another trick, because see, the first source is 2 lines, so we have to do our hanging indent for this source. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this one, and on my keyboard I'm going to hit Control and the letter T, and that's going to do my hanging indent. So let's try it. I'm going to highlight it, hit Control, and then the letter T, and there's our hanging indent. It does look a little strange here, but that's because we have this really long DOI listed here, but that's okay. We do have our hanging indent here, so everything looks good on that. So I'm going to, this is our references list. So there's our list of references that we have. One way I think we may be able to fix that is we could put this on a third line, but you do have to have that hanging indent where you're indenting over from the margin. So here's our references list. These are the two sources that we used in our paper. Now if we're going to put our in-text citation for our first source here, our in-text citation would look like this. Author's last name, comma, and then the page number. Oh, sorry, not the page number, the year. If you were referring to a specific page, you could put in the page number. But it's not required unless you're using a direct quote or citing information that you want to provide the page number for. But if you're just referring to it, if you're saying in the book, tiger trade threatens big cats worldwide, and actually that's a journal article. In the journal article, tiger trade threatens big cats worldwide, you don't necessarily have to give the page number unless you're referring to a specific section. So here are two examples of how to use your in-text citation for that first book, or journal article, excuse me. And then the second source is going to be just Walker, 2002. And if you were citing a specific part of the source, like you wanted to show them what was on page 5, then you would just put in the page number after that. I want to make sure I'm formatting those page numbers correctly because I believe I would want to put the P with it. So I'm going to go over to my in-text citations and just verify and make sure I've got it correct. So this is just some examples of how to format your in-text citation. So make sure you're also referring to this. And in fact, we do want to put in our page number. So a P if it's one page, and then PP if there's multiple pages. So I'm going to go back to my guide here. So make sure you're putting in the P if you're referring to a page number. If it was multiple pages, you could put PP period, and then the page range. So those are going to be just some in-text examples. But those would not go on your references list. Those would go in the actual text of your paper. All right, so that's a lot of information about APA format. I hope you enjoyed this video, and feel free to reach out to us. My name is Nancy Tucker. You can also email us at library@ju.edu. But remember, you don't have to memorize everything in this manual. Just remember that if you don't know information, you know who to reach out to. You can reach out to the librarians, or you can just check the resources available online through the library, Purdue OWL, the American Psychological Association. There's lots of resources out there. Thank you for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day.